Oh, man, it is special guest time because it's a special weekend, the 149th running of the Kentucky Derby. And you cannot have a gambling podcast without talking about one of the most bet on events of the year. I would argue perhaps only second to the Super Bowl. So for that, because for the professor and I really don't know anything about horses, we're going to bring in, I'm going to say a horse expert, but a gambling expert. He's the board guy. You're going to know him, Steve Kornacki from ABC Sports, NBC News. If there's something going on with a touch screen, Steve, you're on it. I watch you from politics to Sunday Night Football, and I will definitely be tuned in for basically all day coverage for the Kentucky Derby. So welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here. This is a longtime horse racing fan, so this week is always one of the funnest of the year.
So we want to get into the handicapping, but before we jump right into the handicapping, let's just talk about the weekend because there's a couple things I think the fans should know. Before we talk about how you bet on horse racing, I think it's important for everybody to know it's not just the Derby. Like, it is a weekend full of degeneracy. And in my world, that is a big compliment, right? So we have Thursday, Friday, but really all day Saturday, there's undercard races that'll go on. So kind of take everybody through what coverage starts at noon, right? It's a full day on NBC.
Yeah, the coverage really you're looking at 2 days here. Friday on, I think, USA, Saturday on NBC. Coverage will start at noon Saturday on NBC. I think we're going to be on the air till 7:30. Everybody obviously is focused on the Kentucky Derby, the most famous horse race every year. But there's a lot of other races on Saturday, and there's a lot of others on Friday. The big one on Friday is the Kentucky Oaks. It's basically the Kentucky Derby for female horses. It's the biggest race for fillies, all year that you're going to have. So that's going to be the big sort of capstone to Friday's coverage. And then all, afternoon on Saturday, you're going to see some of the biggest names in horse racing. There's going to be sprints, there's going to be turf races, there's going to be all sorts of, and it really is, when you say a degenerates and yes, that could be
yes.
It's not a term of disparagement for a lot of gamblers, I can tell you. And I don't think I need to tell you, but you get what you're looking for when it comes to horse racing in a lot of these races. You get big fields, you get tons of people betting, huge betting pools. It creates lots of opportunity. There's potential for value. There's a lot of potential to lose, but there's a lot of potential to make a big score too.
I won't lie. Listen, the Kentucky Derby party I go to, Professor, the best bet is, do the Mint Juleps win or does the Derby win? Because 50-50, how many people make it to the final race? We start right at noon. We're going to make a day of it. So it's going to, listen, I'm in for the long run. I'm going to be interested, but some people can't quite pace themselves. Let's talk about betting and horse wagering. I think everybody understands, right? You can bet simply to win the event, right? So we see the favorite Forte. I have them on my sheet at 3-1. I'm not sure if those odds have moved around or not. And we see long shots all the way to 50-1. I think the bettor understands it's just a multiple on their money. But what other ways? What are popular ways to bet on the horses?
Yeah, well, and one thing to keep in mind too is what you're seeing right now with the odds is the morning line. So this is the estimate from the track of what the odds are going to be. We're really not going to find out till Saturday what the odds actually are, because the odds are just a reflection of who is betting and how much money is being bet on each horse. So the odds are going to fluctuate during the day. And I think this is a really interesting year because last year you had Rich Strike win at 80-1. You had one of the biggest upsets of all time. And one of the theories this year a lot of folks have is that because you had that last year, people are going to be a lot more willing to bet on the long shots this time. So you might see 50-1 right now in the program, and you might look up on Saturday afternoon, and that horse is only 25-1. So I think there's more potential for variance this year from the morning line to what you're actually betting. And I think you got to ask yourself, you're going to have to really ask yourself a question. If you like a horse, take a look at the morning line, take a look at what the real odds are, and say, do I still like the horse? I think that might be in play more this year than in the past. But yeah, obviously betting to win is the simplest. Tons of other ways you can do it. You can do an exacta. And what that simply means is you're betting to get first and second place. And last year is, the ultimate example of this. It happened last year. It'll probably never happen again. But last year, Rich Strike was the longest shot on the board. As I just said, 80-1. In second place in the race last year, Epicenter was the favorite, was the 5-2 favorite in the race. So if you had done a bet, there's 20 horses in the race, and if you had done a $1 exacta, and the bet was all, meaning you're just going to take every horse in the race over the favorite, Epicenter, basically you're saying Epicenter comes in second and anybody else comes in first. You could have made that bet for $19 last year, and that bet was worth $2,000. as it turned out. So that was a huge payday because you had, and I actually know somebody who had that bet, and if, it was just all over the favorite. Now that is a dramatic and extreme example of it, but in a race like the Kentucky Derby, where the pool is huge, where the odds are really spread out, you can often get an exacta or a trifecta. That's getting first place, second place, third place. That's getting all three. You can get real big payouts. They can escalate and multiply really quickly. So those are popular bets. And then doubles, you're trying to get like the winner of the race before the Derby and the winner of the Derby. You could try to get it that way. You could do an Oaks Derby double, get the winner of the Kentucky Oaks Friday, get the winner of the Derby Saturday. You get a good payout that way. There's no shortage of options for you.
So I like the trifecta box. I'm from the Northeast, not as much straight up horse racing, but a lot of harness racing up there. Same idea, same wagering system. And the box allows you to basically pick 3 horses. And when you box the bet, it's kind of like a round robin parlay, right? I'm getting every order of the 1, 2, 3s. I'm not going to pretend I know the multiplier. I don't bet enough on the horses to know the multiplier exact, but I do like the trifecta box. And I'm the guy that's pretty boring. So I'm going to take let's talk about who I should bet. So I'm a guy that looks in here and I see Forte at 3-1. So he's in my box for sure. I'm taking him in the trifecta. I'm even going to take, what is that? Tapit, Trice, probably the second favorite. So I take those 2 and every long shot in a trifecta box. And that's kind of how I do it. And it's, it's not cheap. A $3 bet turns into a few $100s very quickly. But if you can hit that long shot, it usually at least pays for itself, and it gives me something to cheer for.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's the theory that you put them all in a box, and like you're saying, you get any combination of horses. If you put 5 horses in the box, any combination, first, second, third, gets it for you. If you're a little more confident that a Forte or a Tapit Trice is going to win, you could key Forte and Tapit Trice. So 1 or 2 of them has to come in first, and then you can put in more horses for second and even more horses for third. And what that would give you is the opportunity to kind of juice the bet a little bit. So instead of going for like a $2 try, now maybe you're going for a $10 try, but one of those two has to come in first. A good, kind of rule of thumb I always tell people with the trifectas is, think 2, 3, 5, 2 on top, 3 in second, 5 underneath in third place. And you could juice that a little bit. And maybe it's not Forte and Tapit Trice. Maybe you have a long shot pick you like, and you want to try to put that one on top with Forte. There's a couple possibilities there, but yeah, a tri box, a super box, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's a popular bet on Derby Day too. I've tried that one before, never hit it, but that can change your life if you.
So Steve, real quick though, for the new gambler, let's talk about. You mentioned how the odds are going to change. So let's just talk about this. If I put my bet in today, and I picked up, we'll call Forte at say 3-1.
Right.
Regardless of where those numbers are at, do I get to get paid on my bet time or post odds? My point is, if I pick up a favorite to win a basketball game, whatever my ticket says, I get paid regardless of where the odds go. Same opportunity in horse racing?
No, this is where horse racing is different than all the other sport, with this, flood of legalized sports gambling. This is a key thing for people to understand. And I think this is a key issue in horse racing that might be changing. But if you're doing football, if you're doing basketball, if you're doing baseball, you're betting against the house. So the house is going to set the odds, and you're going to get the odds that you bet. So if you get 3-1, when you get that ticket, you're getting 3-1. Now the house may end up moving the odds as game time approaches, but it's not going to affect you if you've already bought in at 3-1. In horse racing, you're not betting against the house. You're betting against your fellow players. So it's called parimutuel betting, parimutuel wagering. And so that means the odds are entirely a reflection of how much money the public is putting on each horse. So the horse that has the most money on it is going to have the lowest odds. The horse that has the smallest amount of money is going to have the longest odds. And basically in horse racing, the house's role is just to take a chunk of that. It's called the takeout, and it varies by track. And they'll just take 19% of all the money that's in the pool, and they just keep that for themselves. And they just distribute
20% jump. 20%. That's a rake right there. Holy smokes.
Jeez.
Okay, so is that why? So you're saying, so make sure I understand this. There's no get it early. There's no watch the numbers. post time. Like, so other than the people that are there at the Derby, everybody else is doing this on the app. So the same thing affects the app. So you're telling me whatever app people are using, I think Twin Spires is a very popular one. I see that online. A lot of other apps are available. I think every book has some sort of action, but Twin Spires is probably the biggest one I hear of. You might as well, if you're electronic, just wait until post time, because then you're going to have a better idea of what you really are wagering. Because it can, like, how much can we see something fluctuate when the mint juleps get flowing and we're 30 minutes away from post time? It's got to make a big, it's got to make a big move, right?
Yeah, I think it's a little different with the Derby than your day-to-day race at, Aqueduct or Fairgrounds or wherever. In those races, and again, this is a major issue in horse racing right now. In your day-to-day race, you're seeing these huge fluctuations when literally the horses are in the gate. And what that is you have these like syndicates of algorithmic, computer-based bettors who basically have access to the win pools, and they'll flood the pool with hundreds of thousands of dollars in the final seconds just based on what they think the value is. It's a little different in the Derby. I don't think it's as susceptible to that because it's the most bet race of the year. So you're talking about a pool just of millions and millions of dollars. And so I think even when there is late money coming in, it doesn't affect it as much. So I would watch the odds though, during the day. Funny things can happen with the odds. Like I said, because of Rich Strike winning at 80-1 last year, we might get some real funky odds this year. And I'll tell you, the other thing that happens, the one I'm looking for in this race is, again, this is unique to the Kentucky Derby. When you get a horse that has a name, a popular name in it, it gets bet a lot by people who just either have the name or know somebody with the name. So there's a horse named Two Phils in this race, and is 12-1 on the morning line. And I'm honestly curious if he's going to take a ton of extra money and end up at like 6-1 or 7-1, because everybody named Phil and everybody who knows a Phil is going to bet this horse. This actually happened in the Derby 5 years ago. There was a horse named My Boy Jack. He was 30-1 on the morning line. Turned out there's a lot of people named Jack in America. He went off at 6-1. He was the second choice in the race. And the only reason was because people like the name Jack.
Well, so if I go with that one, and Chop and the professor will back me up on this, I'm going to go with Hit Show and Raise Cane. Because if you hang out with me enough, Steve, you realize those are right down the alleyway of kind of how it works around here. So I like that. Okay, so do you have a horse? I'm not going to put you on the spot as the handicapper, but you said fade you. So let me see who I'm not taking. Who's your favorite? So I can at least cross them off the list.
So I've been watching all the races. I've been watching all the replays. I've been reading every article. And I've second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth guessed myself. And right now, I've narrowed it down to 4 horses. So I'm not there yet, but I can tell you the 4 that I've narrowed it down to in no particular order: Verifying, Two Phils, Practical Move, and Angel of Empire. And I at any given minute, I'm going to give you a different answer from those 4. But the common denominator there, I think, is I'm looking for value in the Kentucky Derby. I like to bet against the favorite. The favorite Forte absolutely could win this race. I would not be shocked if he does win this race. But my general rule is you don't get too many 20 horse races a year. You don't get this kind of chance for value that often. And so unless the favorite looks like a generational horse to me, I like to try to find a price in the Derby. And so I'm biased towards that. And those are the 4 who I think are going to go off at, kind of realistic prices where you could make a real nice score if they win. And I'm kind of agonizing among them.
Well, Steve, I want you to know with confidence that this degenerate group is going to have all 4 of those in a super box. We're also going to have all 4 of those in probably an exacta. I'll probably put an exacta box, all 4 separately with Forte, just in case he does win. So if either of those 4 horses lose to the favorite, deep down inside, you can have a little bit of warmth knowing that the Dirty Mo-Do group has at least put a little bit of change in our pocket from you joining on the pod today. So I really appreciate it.
I'm going to remember that, and feel free to give me a little cut if that happens.